Is this the sound of the German Autobahn? Maybe if you're visiting, because for many locals, hurtling down the highway at top speed is just another day of driving. Germany is the only industrialized nation that doesn't have a general speed limit. So if you see this sign, you can put the pedal to the metal. For some, these joyrides are liberating.
Das ist wirklich ein Stück Freiheit auch.
And they elicit fascination abroad.
No matter how fast you're driving in Germany, someone is driving faster than you.
But many experts say this fast driving makes the highways less safe. It also burns lots of fuel, which is terrible for the environment. Germany could save millions of tons of CO2 a year if it implemented a speed limit. So why doesn't the self-proclaimed green power take its foot off the gas? In Germany, the debate around the speed limit is polarizing. A slight majority of the population wants one, but the opposition is loud.
Es wiegt sich nicht auf, dass man nur, um irgendwie ein bisschen Spaß zu haben oder sich irgendwie überlegen zu fühlen, mit 200 Sachen über die Autobahn fährt.
Und ich denke mal, dass wir das noch aufrechthalten sollten. Und wir schränken uns überall ein.
Offenbar ist das Benzin immer noch nicht teuer genug, dass die Leute mal langsamer fahren.
Für was bauen wir Autos mit über 50 PS, wenn man nur mal 100 fahren darf?
And spoiler alert, this discussion often doesn't revolve around facts.
It's a kind of, so to say, emotional debate.
This is Katja Diel. She wrote a book about mobility in Germany.
Because people want to stuck, to be free, to have their free will of drive really fast.
But let's take a look at the facts first. Germany has more than 13,000 kilometers of Autobahn, famously well-maintained and toll-free for cars. Most countries in the world got speed limits to improve road safety or to conserve fuel. Yet in Germany, you can drive as fast as you want on about 70% of highways. Opponents of the speed limit argue that there are fewer road deaths per kilometer on the Autobahn than in some nations such as France or Italy. But experts like the German Road Safety Council say it would become even safer with a limit. In recent years, the discussion has shifted to another aspect, the climate. The one thing all studies agree on is that a speed limit on these highways would lower emissions. The question is, to what extent? Well, according to the latest study by Germany's Environment Agency, the country could save up to 6.7 million tons of CO2 per year if it implemented a speed limit of 120 kilometers per hour. That's about as much as low-emission countries like Rwanda and Eritrea pollute in a year. The researchers say a limit would reduce CO2 output because cars would burn less fuel on the Autobahn. When you drive fast, the engine needs to work harder to overcome increased resistance from the air and tires. But they also argue that new restrictions would dissuade many people from even taking the highway to begin with. Drivers would choose more direct routes through low-speed areas like cities or country roads. Or they could switch to greener modes of transportation. Another study commissioned by the car-friendly FDP party denies the effect of these last two variables. It puts the savings much lower at 1.1 million tons per year. So, realistically speaking, how substantial really is a cut of 1 to 6 million tons of CO2 for a top polluter like Germany?
The opponents of motorway speed limit argue that the emission reductions would be trivial.
Giulio Mattioli researches transport and climate policy.
They just choose a denominator that would make it appear ridiculously small, but I think if you choose the right denominator, the reduction would be substantial.
The denominator he's referring to is the gap between how much the German transportation sector should be emitting, according to the Federal Climate Protection Act, and how much it actually is emitting. In 2022, the sector went over its CO2 emissions target by 9 million tons. A speed limit could reduce that difference significantly if we go with the German Environment Agency's estimates. If we go with the Liberal Party's estimates, the limit could reduce a portion of these excess emissions.
It's such a low-hanging fruit in terms of, it will have other benefits in terms of safety, reducing road deaths, and it already exists in pretty much any other country in the world.
But for some Germans, that's a big ask. They see driving fast as an expression of their freedom, and cars as a part of their culture.
Some of us Germans see it as a kind of DNA. I think it started, sorry to say, with Adolf Hitler.
The Nazi dictator promised to motorize Germany in the 1930s, a venture that he said would create jobs and drive technological development. He wanted to lay the groundwork for one of the earliest highway networks in the world. For a while, the Nazis implemented no speed restrictions. That is, until resources started running low during World War II, and Autobahn drivers had to stick to a limit of 80 kilometers per hour to conserve gas. After the war, having autonomy became crucial to many Germans.
Germany was really destroyed, where there was no hope, where there was people were coming back from the fronts, and the car was a kind of freedom sign.
Owning a car was the aspiration, and that turned more and more feasible as the car industry started booming. Producing cars became the answer to rebuilding the country's economy, and driving them fast became the answer to rebuilding its freedom. So West Germany got rid of the Nazi speed limit law in 1952. Similarly, when the communist GDR dissolved during German reunification in 1990, its Autobahn speed restrictions went with it shortly after. For decades, many Germans fought tooth and nail for this liberty. Anytime anyone messed with the right to drive fast, they were met with outrage. Today, the outrage is not necessarily linked to overcoming the restrictions of an authoritarian regime. But there are other limitations in a country as highly regulated as Germany. Throwing away glass or mowing the lawn on a Sunday? Too disruptive according to German law. Washing your car at home? That's a no-go in most areas. And forget about dancing on Good Friday.
There are a lot of very detailed bans on what people can and cannot do. But it seems that for some reason, the motorway speed has been sort of construed as an area where there should not be limited.
Perhaps because in a country with tens of millions of cars and pristine roads, driving fast might just be one of the easiest ways to find that slice of freedom. This slice of freedom has become a bit of a selling point abroad. Tourists even come to Germany to drive as fast as possible. For several hundred euros, you too can rent a premium car to enjoy the excitement of the notorious German Autobahn, drive full throttle, and reach top speeds of 300 kilometers per hour or more. But if other people also find driving fast so fun, why is Germany one of the only countries that still allows it? After all this time, the speed limit can hardly be sold as a relic of Nazi Germany. Well, that booming car industry that provided many Germans with a taste of freedom back then is still around, of course, and it's very influential. The line between politicians and the car lobby has long been blurry.
So you see this kind of what in Germany we call Drehtür effect. You step out of politics and you go to the industry or to the lobby organizations.
These close ties became apparent when Germany's previous transport minister met with industry representatives 80 times during his tenure of nearly 4 years. This was first reported by the German newspaper Süddeutsche Zeitung. He only met with environmental associations once. And the new government continues to give privileged access. Its last mobility summit was almost exclusively stacked with car representatives. It's no surprise then that the government has often pushed for the car industry's interests when it comes to limiting caps on vehicle emissions, for example, or expanding highways around the country. As for the speed limit, we can't say that the car lobby has actively petitioned against it in government. But we know the Conservative and the Liberal Party currently stand in the way of this restriction, and so does most of the industry.
We do not need a general rigid speed limit on open roads.
Simon Schütz is a spokesperson for the VDA, an interest group for Germany's automotive industry.
We need situation-adapted speed regulation.
The VDA suggests digital boards could show a speed limit when bad weather or traffic conditions require it. According to the group, a rigid limit would have minimal effects on the climate or road safety. Its fact sheet references a study that says the limit could cost German society more than €1 billion. The study calculated how much time Germans would lose if they drove slower, and how much of an average wage they would miss out on as a result. But this 2023 paper, published in the Journal for Ecological Economics, disputes assertions like these. Its cost-benefit analysis says Germany could save hundreds of millions every year. Because yes, there is a cost to the speed limit. But benefits like paying less for fuel, damages from accidents, and even the future effects of climate change outweigh these costs. The VDA also says a speed limit could turn some people against further climate protections.
There has been a tendency to want to achieve goals with bans, with rules, with regulations. And I believe that that is counterproductive and ultimately maybe even dangerous, because every ban, every rule, every regulation is decreasing the approval in society.
Despite discussions like these, public opinion has swung towards being slightly in favor of a speed limit in recent years. But as long as car lobbyists don't see a benefit in it, proponents will continue facing an influential opposition. Recent attempts to implement a speed limit have been denied in Parliament because one of the parties in power, the car-friendly FDP, blocked the issue from being part of the coalition agreement. Instead, some opponents like to point to alternatives to save emissions, like going electric. Many car producers are becoming more open to the shift. After all, the EU has banned the sale of new petrol and diesel cars from 2035. And Germany is very slowly incentivizing people to use electric vehicles. But there are still tens of millions of cars with combustion engines on German roads, and not everyone can afford to get rid of theirs or wants to. Beyond that, the country has the potential to improve public transport in rural areas and revamp a train system that currently is often late and unreliable. But these solutions take time. What many environmental researchers stress is that a speed limit is one of the fastest mechanisms we have to lower emissions in the meantime.
In my opinion, if the German government can't even bring itself to do that, then I wonder what it can do to reduce transport emissions.
I think we need to have like better statues, symbols, or better dreams as driving fast and owning a car.
For some people, this would feel like an attack on their culture, their personal freedom, but it would put Germany on par with most countries in the world. This is as fast as I'll go, but I'm interested in your opinion. Should Germans learn to slow down, or is it their right to drive fast? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to hit subscribe to see more videos like these.